What is up, everyone? Week 4 is in the books, and we are back with another video on the Dynasty Daddy channel. If you want us to take a look at your questions and answer them directly, I recommend joining us Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, every single week. Will and I will break everything down. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of our rosters. We're going to analyze them with some of these middling rosters. What should we be looking to do? Should we be tearing it all down? Should we be kind of playing the uncertain game of 1 foot in each bucket or whatever it's called, or going all in and trying to buy some pieces? So let's jump on into it.
All right, Jeremy, we're going to start with one of my teams here. This one is a 1-2 fraud, and you can see, so this is part of the Dynasty Daddy Club, the luck factor. It's been neutral, and we'll take a look at some league all play. I was pretty excited heading into the season. This is an orphan I had taken over to have this QB room competing for this year. Kind of hit on the RB2 position behind Kyron with Javonte Williams production, but the wide receivers have been really disappointing. Obviously, looking at some of these names, A.J. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Juwan Jennings with some injuries, Calvin Ridley, pretty disappointing production with the target share he's seeing, and then just a bunch of middling tight ends. Kincaid production has been good, but I think overall the team production just has not been consistent enough at the skill position players to be able to compete, and I am 1-2 heading into 1-3. All right, heading over to the standings page on the Dynasty Daddy site here, we can look at the all play records, which is the team's record versus each team during each individual week. Get a good feel for if you were unlucky. 4-7, 3-8, 7-4 in week 3, and I'll tell you what, man, and you could probably guess with the A.J. Brown performance in week 4, this is going to look pretty rough as well. Probably closer to that 3-8. All right, heading over to the playoff calculator page next. Right now, 1-2, going to be 1-3. I'm already at 11%, even without the next week calculated, and we could go into selecting the future game results. I'm definitely losing this week. It's looking pretty rough, so I think we need to take a look.
There's still a chance. That's what I'm hearing, right?
there's still a chance, and I will say, I mean, the Lamar injury is going to be tough, but we'll take a look at it. So taking a look at this roster, I think the QB core, as far as like a competing team, is pretty strong with Lamar, Fields, and Bryce Young. The Lamar hamstring injury stuff's going to be something to monitor. Doesn't sound like it's anything season ending, but potentially could be a couple weeks at a team that's already going to be 1-3 with an injury to, one of the highest scoring consistency players on the team. I really do think I'm leaning towards selling what I can off of this team. And that probably is the running back production, because I don't think I'm going to get anything for the A.J. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Juwan Jennings, Calvin Ridleys of the world. So I think it's going to be these running backs that are going to get me the most bang for my buck. Is that what you're thinking as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the A.J. Brown one is tough. I mean, you're not getting the price that you probably see on the site right now, given he's had 1 out of 3 good weeks, just like your team. But, the other ones are like Jeudy, Jennings, Ridley. The upside's just not really there. I mean, you might at most get a second for them if you're lucky, and that's still something that you're probably not going to get right now. You might get it like week 8, injuries happen, someone needs a wide receiver, you can slide in there and get a little bit of value for someone like a Jerry Jeudy, but it's not something that has the high upside of like a Javonte Williams, Kyron, which might not fit your window currently, but certainly have consistent production that you could sell to someone.
Yeah, and I do think week 4 in the season, specifically for Javonte Williams, I think seeing 4 weeks of solid production, I think people kind of expect that for the rest of the season for Javonte, regardless of how you feel about him getting an extension. I'm going straight to the RB rank filter, and I'm trying to take a look at some teams that are contending, competing, that maybe don't have the running back production. So we've got a fraud right here, 2-1 with Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne, and good. I mean, two good running backs. But I wonder if I could give this team a running back, potentially a Kyron or Javonte, to either get, a future second plus or be working for a Kyron deal for a first with the contract extension.
I feel like Kyron, you can certainly get a first for, like maybe you buy on a player that is injured or something. Like he does have Reed. Like I could see like a Jaden Reed in a second not being terrible value. Still prefer the first, but it's still something that might fit your window more than just being like, oh, I'll take Hollywood Brown in a second.
With the wide receiver room, how it is unproductive veterans, we got some Juwan Jennings, Calvin Ridleys. I think this is the kind of team where I would be willing to move a Kyron to, hopefully get a first and a Jaden Reed type where it's a younger player that you're making a bet on that's injured and obviously not helping this team right now. So I might start there. And I will say with Isaiah Likely and Zach Ertz and Cole Kmet, like some middling tight ends. And I will say, talk about middling tight ends. I'm the middling tight end factory with Kincaid, Strange, and Njoku, Ingram. So I think I could probably...
Kincaid hasn't been terrible, though.
No, I will say I think people don't really buy it with Kincaid, with the last game being, one. He still got the similar snap route rate stuff. Last game, he did have a touchdown, but it was off of 1 catch. So I think, I could try to, loop in Kincaid and see if I can, add in one of these tight ends with Kyron for a first and read and see if I can get that deal done.
I do have one other team. Got Herbert, Chase, Sutton, Debo, Hill. Kittle's injured. They got James Cook, Daniel Jones they hit on. This team is pretty well rounded. Obviously, he's gotten unlucky given the production that they have. Woody Marks, he may be the guy now. We don't know after this week, but
people are talking.
With Aaron Jones out, they're looking at Woody Marks and White as a starter. I think this is a team that would say, hey, my team looks pretty solid on paper. I don't feel like 1 and 2 really reflects what my team is. I think you could probably get them to say, yeah, I'll give a 26 first for a Kyron, to lock in Kyron, James Cook with Chase and Herbert. I think that's another option for a team that does need a running back, especially with Aaron Jones out and with the inconsistencies with Woody Marks just being a rookie. I think this is also a decent team that would be looking to buy someone like that.
Yeah, I think I'll probably send an offer, similar type of offer to this team as well, and we can end there. And a little bit additional context with this team. This team actually did send me an offer last week for Javonte Williams, and it was, I'm giving them Javonte and a third for Chris Godwin, which, like, I did put Javonte Williams on the block, but my return was not looking for an aging receiver coming off an injury. Like, my team is definitely trying to cash in on these running backs with picks and youth. So I had, shared that sentiment back that that's not really the type of deal I was looking for. So I think, this team had already kind of shared that they are looking for a running back. And, even with the good Woody week, I think I can send an offer. So I definitely will follow up, let you know if I can get a first back for Kyron, or see if I can cook something with Javonte and some of these tight ends as well.
Obviously, we talked about the running backs, moving them. What's your thoughts on your strategies around someone like a Lamar Jackson or an AJ Brown? Is like Lamar, if he's kind of banged up all year, even though it's a rebuilder, you're just going to hold him. It's Lamar. Where are you getting that type of production from? And an AJ Brown, which is like, he still does have a decent enough price tag. Are you just going to try to take 60% of that price tag and move him to get off the ride of AJ Brown? Or are you saying, hey, I'll just ride it out and see what he does in 27?
So Lamar specifically, obviously, the answer is going to change a little bit depending on what this injury looks like. If it is going to be like, yeah, he's going to avoid IR, but it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks or something. So I would probably hold out until that point and be willing to. Like, this team is pretty close to me wanting to just like full on blow this thing to smithereens. Just when you look at a team that has aging receivers, it's hard for me to, squint. And unless like Tootin turns into smash RB, it's hard for me to envision this team competing next year without some drastic moves. And that's kind of why I'm thinking about kind of the, more blowing up with the running backs. And, definitely could include AJ Brown as well. And this is kind of the thing with a lot of these teams that you want to blow up based off of disappointing production. Sometimes you just have to wait. Like AJ Brown is the perfect example of a receiver where you kind of have to wait. He still got 7 or 9 targets in this last game. Like, they were pretty disappointing. Eagles could not move the ball in the second half. These division games can be kind of funky. And I mean, AJ Brown was 2 weeks removed from kind of a monster game. So I think 1 or 2 more monster games from AJ Brown, and I put him on the block, and I'm getting some interesting offers where I'm adding a player onto AJ Brown to get a first and something else. I would probably look to do that versus let me get a second and a receiver I hope turns into something for AJ Brown. Are you gonna head over to your team?
Shout outs to this Reddit league.
All right, Jeremy, give me the breakdown. What are we looking at with your team that you submitted here?
2 years ago, I did a retool. I had Tyreek Hill. I got 3rd overall. And I was like, I'm just going to start kicking the can. This is a 12 team, start 12. I was just starting a lot of gross players, so I wanted to just acquire as many picks as possible. Thankfully, got very lucky. It both, 24 and 25, I hit on a lot of picks. Also made a big swing for Puka when he was injured like a year and a half ago, which is obviously worked out at this point.
Yeah.
I also traded back from Marv to Neighbors. I mean, injury aside, that's worked out in my favors.
1 and 5 here. Now, enough bragging. Let's
I'm painting the scene. I'm painting the scene. I like it. Because I came in, I had number 1 overall fantasy value, number 1 over starter rank. I was sitting here, I was like, this team is just gonna run train on this league.
1, 1,
and now
2,
I'm looking
3.
here with Burrow injured, Neighbors injured. He's not being counted in the starter rank yet because his status hasn't been officially set to IR. And then Brian Thomas underperforming, and even Brock Bowers. I mean, it's been a little bit underperforming. He's been banged up. So I'm looking at this team, and the team that I felt really good on. And I was like, last year, I was like, I'm just going to hammer running back. That's the only position I needed. Hampton, thankfully, it started looking like the guy I was, planting a flag on. But Harvey and Caleb Johnson looking like some slow starters on my team. All of a sudden turned a team that I was very optimistic about into a team where I'm like, like this might be another one of those like, I guess there's always next year type of teams. That being said, I'm going to go 2-0 this week, so we will be 3-5. Things are trending up, but the big injuries at Burrow and Neighbors especially kind of damper my expectations of like, oh, I can truly just flip this team into a elite contender right out of the gate, because without Burrow and Neighbors, I'm going to have to rely on guys like Keon Coleman. I'm going to have to rely on guys like RJ Harvey, Woody Marks in my flex, Rashad White. Players like that I'm going to need to step up for this team to actually compete. If we look at the all league play record for the first 3 weeks, so obviously the fourth week isn't counted, not too great. 14-19, bottom 5 in the league. I'm certainly going to move up a little bit after this week's performance, but it's not like I'm sitting here just getting unlucky every week. This team is clearly underperforming on a lot of metrics, and some of it is, hey, my player got injured and only scored 3 points. Other times it is just, I started RJ Harvey, and now RJ Harvey, does nothing. And then if we toggle into the playoff calculator, I still have a 57% chance. And now if we toggle, I win and beat the median, I'm up to 71% chance to make the playoffs. So this is certainly a team I think I can still make the playoffs with. But I do think the ceiling of this team is certainly limited, as Neighbors is going to be out for the entire year.
I mean, these are 2 first-round Dynasty startup assets that are just burning a hole in your pocket on a contending team. I will say that I do like the way that you've built the QB room around, Burrow and Murray. I mean, this is why in these deep Dynasty leagues, you just want to roster all these backup quarterbacks. I do think, Woody Marks definitely will help out this. Feels deep running back room, but doesn't feel deep that you can play any of these guys. Overall, contending-wise, I do expect this team, like just kind of quick glance looking at the other teams, to be in the top half of weekly expected production. So I think you're projecting to beat the median each week. And I will say in these median leagues, it is very nice to have these teams that you think have consistent production, even with some of the injuries that you have. If you're week 6 and you're 1-5 and you're only getting 1 win each week, it feels impossible to surmount. But 2-0 next week, you're at 5-5. Or do you feel the need to move one of Burrow or Neighbors in a deal to fill out your starting lineup? Or do you think you have enough depth to just kind of see where this thing takes you for the next couple weeks before pushing that?
Since it is a 12-team start 12, I just want to hold on to these players.
Yeah.
Because I know if I can build up a mountain of valuable assets and start a ton of them, my team will just roll. And I've had worse teams than this team, even with the injuries, make the playoffs in this league. Part of the reason I did build out all, I took Penix last year in the second round because he fell, and I was like, sure, I'll just hold on to him. Is he going to be Burrow replacement? Probably not, given some of the ways he's played. But he's someone that means I don't have to go sell Burrow for 60% of his value to plug a hole on a team that had higher expectations. I do think the methods I might take is I do have a ton of these third round picks, second round picks. I think being aggressive and trying to target some of these teams that may have players on more rebuilding rosters that have higher upside but lower kind of dynasty value. I think this is a roster where it's maybe for example, Cut My Chubb, he has Christian McCaffrey on a 0-6 roster. And you got Justin Jefferson.
Cam Ward,
this team is very much a rebuild. Maybe I need to be aggressive in trying to see what can I do without moving a first, because a first round pick in a 12-team start 12, you're probably going to get a young, valuable player.
Yeah.
But is there a way I can take a second and add on something that would make this an interesting type of deal that this team would consider, since they only have one player that's producing at a high level? This team has a Jordan Mason. Maybe that's a decent depth piece until my RJ Harveys and Caleb Johnsons get going. But that's probably the direction I would take on this team.
Yeah.
And a big reason is I have all these later seconds and thirds and fourths. If you don't buy thirds for players or sell when you can, especially in a deep league like this, it's hard to be able to make these moves without moving first.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I do feel lucky about this league is I sit here and I'm like, I don't really want to take all these thirds and fourths and seconds, given how loaded my roster is currently.
Yeah.
So I could feel like I can consolidate some of these, potentially get some cheaper win now pieces to kind of try to piece together a team that replaces a lot of the Neighbor Burrow production, even if the dynasty outlook of those pieces aren't, oh, cool, I'm getting, a Woody Marks that could be someone good. I'm not getting 2026 Woody Marks, but I'm getting a gross player. I'm getting an Aaron Jones that will come back and might get me 10 points a week that I can at least put in a flex spot in a 12-team start 12.
People get really sucked into dynasty value and they feel the need to win the dynasty value trade. They plug it into the calculator. Oh, I'm losing this one. I can't do it. But I think these kind of teams, if you feel the need to at the running back position specifically, paying for the expected +1 win matters a lot for this team. That I think is still really strong if you are able to make a push for the playoffs. And you should be able to, even with the Burrow and Neighbors injury And doing that kind of deal, like let's say like this team you were looking at real quick, this cut my chub. This team makes total sense for them to move off of CMC and maybe even Cortland Sutton as well. So I think if you looked at this team, true, and maybe you want to pay up a little bit, but you've got some interesting young players. I think you have some shots at the running back position. You have an amazing young wide receiver core. I think those kind of deals where you feel like you're overpaying dynasty value wise to give yourself the production to be able to compete this season, I'm down to do.
Just looking at those rebuilding teams and trying to find players that just don't fit their window, a CMC is much more valuable to my roster than to his. That kind of wraps up our breakdown. I mean, Will and I were behind the scenes. We're like, we could make this video 4 hours long. But if you want the almost 4 hours long special, Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, every single week, we go not 4 hours. Most of the time it's 2 hours and some change. So definitely check that out. It's a fun time. We're not talking about our teams. No one cares about our teams. Everyone wants to talk about their teams, and that's what those live streams are all about.
See you there.